NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is outside Caesars Superdome in New Orleans.
And with more on the investigation, our Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley is standing by in Washington. Jesse, let's start with you in the latest out of New Orleans. Two questions. First, just how are those who were injured in the attack doing? And is Bourbon Street still an active crime scene right now?
So let's start with Bourbon Street, Joe. Of course, we are expecting a football game, the Sugar Bowl, part of the college football playoffs, to be played behind me here just hours from now. You can imagine under normal circumstances, many people would probably want to get the party started on Bourbon Street before the game and potentially after. We do not at this point have any indication as to whether that may open at some point later today. But what we do know is that the FBI said late yesterday that it is planning to turn over the crime scene to local authorities today. So the FBI had taken charge of this investigation, so they are planning to wrap up their evidence gathering and hand things back over to local authorities at some point early today, is what they had described yesterday. We haven't gotten an indication if that has happened yet, if that handover has happened yet, so that's something we'll be watching for. As for the victims, we're starting to get a picture of those who have died. We're getting a sense of who they were. We know that their ages range from the 20s into the 30s based on who has been identified so far, and we're waiting for more information, more notifications, and all of that to unfold. But what I can tell you about those who are still alive, we know that it's more than 30 people who were injured, according to authorities, but we don't know much about their condition. We know that there were multiple police officers who were shot. They are recovering, they are alive, but we don't know much about the injuries in terms of how many people were hit by a vehicle versus having potentially been hit by gunfire. Authorities were asked about this, asked about the victims at the press conference yesterday, and effectively authorities would not go into that. They would not go into down that line of questioning. They wouldn't go down other lines of questioning or elaborate much on other topics as well. So there's still a lot of outstanding questions about how this happened and what the conditions are for people who were injured.
Julia, the FBI says that they don't believe the driver who carried out this attack was acting alone. I understand there are some old videos that have surfaced that show the suspect. What more are we learning about the Army veteran who allegedly is behind this? And where does the investigation stand in terms of other potential people involved?
Well, there's a video that really just is in stark contrast to the person who is suspected for carrying out this attack. It came from 2020 when he's advertising himself as a realtor. That started going around late yesterday. And I think what's so shocking about it is this is someone who really just appears to be, an Army veteran. He calls himself, he's born and raised in Texas. We do know more about what happened since then. That video was in 2020. We now understand, and I understand this from law enforcement sources as well, in DHS, who would have tracked his travel when he came back into the United States. He went once into Canada. We believe he also took a trip to Egypt in 2023. These are some of the things that were happening in his life. We don't know exactly what would have led him to this point. Of course, you pointed out that there was an ISIS flag on this truck. We understand that he rented the truck through what's kind of like an Airbnb for rentals. It's called Toro. And we understand that when you talk about videos, there were also surveillance videos in the area that were under review to see if there could have been other people setting up IEDs, but we don't have information to confirm exactly if there were other people helping out to plan explosives around New Orleans or what exactly was found. We just understand those videos, that surveillance is all under review to see if there were other people who might have been co-conspirators or if this attack actually been planned to be even larger and deadlier than it was, Savannah.
Jesse, as we mentioned, you're outside the Superdome. That's where the Sugar Bowl is scheduled to take place this afternoon. It was postponed yesterday. Are officials taking additional steps to try and keep people safe today? And on top of that, just in general, we know New Orleans is a place where people visit from all over the world. The goal is to have a good time. What's the mood like in the city after yesterday?
I think a lot of mixed emotions, Joe. We have met people who are still planning to go to the football game. I was on one of the first flights out yesterday from Atlanta, of all places. So I was in Georgia. Georgia is one of the teams that's supposed to be playing in this game this afternoon. And I was with fans, some who were aware of what had happened and others who may not have been. And I actually, when I got through security, I was talking with some Georgia fans, and they hadn't realized what had happened here. So I think throughout the day, the mood and right people's mindsets probably changed. I also can tell you there's some people who were supposed to go here but have told our team that they just are going to go home. It feels safer to watch this on TV instead of being here. This is also supposed to be hosting the Super Bowl in less than 2 months. So again, just so much scrutiny on the security preparations here before New Year's Eve and going into this game and going into the Super Bowl. What I can tell you we've seen that's changed is you can see along the sidewalk here, right on the curb off of this main road, these hardened barricades. They stopped back there yesterday, but since the attack, we have seen them extend, and they now go to the end of the block. So this is one of the preparations that appears to have changed here. Whether that was always going to happen or not, I can't say definitively, but we definitely know that this has expanded over the last day. We also know that the Sugar Bowl is telling people if they're parking at the stadium that there will be security screening that they can expect for their vehicle. And our producer who lives here in New Orleans tells me that's not typical for a game day here. So it appears that there is a heightened security presence, and we'll be looking to see how things play out here. This is a stadium with a capacity over 70,000 people. It'll be interesting to see if it looks full or if it looks like a substantial number of people have decided to stay away.
Absolutely, and we know you'll keep us posted on that, Jesse. Julia, I do also want to ask you about any potential connection here that investigators we know were exploring between this attack in New Orleans and then that explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas yesterday. Is there any update there?
Well, I think that's the key word, exploring. We understand from local law enforcement officials, they've said that they're not ruling anything out. The truck in New Orleans was rented through the same app as that Cybertruck in Las Vegas. The Las Vegas truck was rented in Colorado. The New Orleans truck was rented in Texas. Is there some kind of a connection here? We have to wait and see. There's not as many details coming out of Las Vegas at this time, but clearly there's a heightened threat here when investigators, especially on the federal level, are looking across to see how these people might have acted in similar ways. You can have people carry out terrorism in similar ways without them actually conspiring, because we know now that people can take inspiration from other places. So all of that is just to say they're not ruling anything out, but they have not yet said that these two incidents are connected. Savannah.
Julia Ainsley, Jesse Kirsch, thank you both.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.